5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
This is the Culture Clash.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome, everybody, to this latest episode of Culture Clash Live, episode 251. Thank you for joining us as we continue our look at Star Wars The Acolyte, the main focus of this week's show. We're going to be talking about episode 5, Night. But I can't talk about all the latest in fandom news, reviews, and what's happening with The Acolyte alone. Now, I think he avoided becoming a lightsaber kebab this week, but I'm not 100% sure, so I better check for holes, which means I better bring him on the show. He, of course, is the co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, one Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
Yeah, no kebabbing. I got luck there. But I am afraid of those lightsabers that, little stabby lightsabers. I'm afraid of those.
Yeah, those are dangerous. Among a group of things we saw this week, but first and foremost, you are watching Culture Clash Live here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, this is the flagship show of the Fandom Podcast Network, where we talk about all the latest happenings in news and fandom and reviews. And we've got a bit of everything here tonight. And we are excited to talk about it all with you. As, like I said, we are doing our continuing coverage of The Acolyte, the latest addition to the Star Wars universe. It's been an up and down ride, Mr. Reitzel, but maybe this is the week that things turn around a little bit.
Well, I'd like to address that if you don't mind. I'd like to be upfront and honest about my look into this. We've had our issues with this show thus far, like a lot of fans have. It's obviously one of those episodes or one of those series that not everyone's on the same boat about. But I after listening to other people and other podcasts and getting some different perspectives on thing and looking back at our last show and about what we talked about, I wanted to I want to mention this to everyone basically, and I'm mostly speaking for myself, is Kevin. Let's look at what the Acolyte is giving us, not what they're not giving us. And obviously there's things that they've done in the show that we're like, well, I didn't want that to happen. I didn't expect this. And why aren't they going into this and that? Well, I realize the more that we kind of note the stuff that we're not getting, we're kind of missing the stuff that they are giving us. And they're trying to obviously lay this out and give us something new, give us a dark side perspective, which I think a lot of us are kind of forgetting about that. Like I said, last episode, Kyle, I was upset that there was not a lot of likable people in this series. Now, maybe that changes with this newest episode, but I think that we need to look and see what they're giving us. And I got to say, I like the fact that they're not saving everything for the last episode. They're giving us little things to kind of chew on, but you have to kind of pay attention to these things. And I'm just going to tease this. Everyone's talking about the lightsaber battles in this, but my favorite part of this episode was not the lightsaber battles. I'm just going to say that.
Okay, so I'm gonna counterpoint you just a little, not just so everybody knows where we're coming from. I definitely agree with what you're saying. And hello,
what's up, Adam? Sorry, I want to say hi to Adam out there.
Yeah, I was going to do that. Quick shout out to the Lethal Mullet himself, who just put out a great episode on the network with the classic 80s film Red Dawn on the Lethal Mullet podcast.
Yeah, but he's celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. We'll be touching on that later too on our own.
I feel very old, but with what you said, Kevin, I think, but that's been part of my problem with the Acolyte. It's you talk about what it's not giving, how we feel what it's not giving us or what it's not doing. The problem is I haven't felt like it's given us really anything as of yet, and that might be changing when we discuss tonight's episode. But up until this point, and hello to Blair down under as well.
What's going on, Blair? I know he's got thoughts.
No, I know he does too. But so that's going to be one of the things we're going to talk about, which reminds me, we have to have some serious spoiler alerts. We are going to be talking heavy about episode 5 of The Acolyte. If you have not watched it yet, go watch it, come back, join us live here on our YouTube channel, or if you're listening to the later audio version of this podcast, pause it, come back and join us, because like I said, we're going to be talking about a lot of things with this episode. But Kevin, we have a lot of things to talk about. We got some buy it, stream it, or see it a little later. We got a little bit of fandom news. It's going to be a very fun episode.
I'm going to just tease right now. I saw Bad Boys 4. I'm going to give my mostly non-spoiler review on it.
But first and foremost, we are here to talk about Star Wars: The Acolyte.
I just want to mention Chris saying I actually thought the lightsaber battle kind of dragged. Sometimes I could see how he thinks that, because sometimes, you know, especially in the Marvel universe, the battles just go on and on and on and on, and Transformer battles go on and on and on, and a lot of kaiju battles go on and on and on.
Especially the Transformer battles, they go on and on and on and on. But two, just a reminder, if you want more Acolyte coverage and even a deeper dive than what Kevin and I are going to do here, or get some different opinions, go visit our friends on the Drunken Gungan and listen to or watch on the YouTube channel What a Piece of Junk, our exclusive Star Wars show covering everything that is happening in Star Wars. Scott, Nathan, and Derek do a great job covering all that's happening within the Star Wars universe, and always have some very interesting takes. And Kevin, I just got to give a quick shout out to Scott. He put out a video out of his new domicile over the
that means home.
Yeah. Well, it's specifically called the domicile because if you see it, it's one of those new dome homes, and I didn't get a chance to see it, but Scott, it looks good. You did a great job with it.
It looks really good. I appreciated the personal video tour since I couldn't be there.
So, but guys, let's get into it. Let's not wait any longer. Let's talk about the Acolyte episode 5. Again, one last chance. Spoiler alert. We are diving deep into this episode. We got a lot of things to talk about. Mr. Reitzel, would you care to give us the plot synopsis for episode 5, Night?
I will. Shout out to Adam saying, I like Saul. He's kind of cool. He's got a defo past that needs to be explained. I mean, probably like sketchy. Very Qui-Gon Jinn-like. Yeah, a lot of comparisons to Qui-Gon. I like that. Okay, this is the plot synopsis for Star Wars: The Acolyte, Episode 5, Night. Osha witnesses the mysterious warrior kill all the Jedi except Yord, Jeki, and Sol. Sol saves Osha from the warrior and demands he reveal his identity. But the warrior claims that he has already met Sol before vanishing into the forest. Jeki captures May, but the mysterious warrior arrives to kill May for trying to betray him. Jeki cuts away the warrior's mask before she is killed, revealing him to be Khmer. Sol arrives and questions Khmer, who claimed to be Sith. He intends to leave no witnesses to keep his existence secret. Yord ambushes Khmer, but is quickly killed. Sol fights Khmer again and overpowers him, but he is stopped from killing him by Osha. She plants a light on Khmer that causes the Force bugs to attack him and carry him away. May uses Osha's stun gun on Sol so she can speak with Osha, but they end up arguing about each other's choices, and May uses the Force to knock Osha unconscious. May steals Osha's clothes and poses as her sister when returning to Sol, who takes her to their ship. They are followed by the suspicious Basil. Khmer frees himself from the bugs and comes across the unconscious Osha. And there is your plot synopsis for Night.
So, Kevin, let's give our initial reactions to this episode. I'll let you open things up here. What were your instant reactions as soon as you got done watching the episode?
Excellent lightsaber battle, which is what we like to see, of course, in Star Wars. I liked that we got some dialogue in between some of the characters to kind of flush out what they're up to, or some questions we might have been wondering about as well. The reveal that Khmer was this mysterious Sith was not a big surprise to me, and probably lots of fans. There was a lot of guessing going on there, and a lot of them were right, but it did not diminish the fact for me. I thought that the character, especially when he was unmasked, had its moments there. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I'm more curious about the bigger ramifications of this particular event in this episode and how it's going to affect the rest of this series in the next few episodes as to, well, going forward in what we know of the Jedi history, then going into, the New Republic and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
For me, this has definitely been my favorite episode of the Acolyte. You have some great lightsaber battles. You have some very obvious reveals. I think there was no shock there of who was the Sith and who the Master was. There's some interesting storyline things here. There's a few things with this story, and we'll get into it a little later in this episode. Just some thoughts of maybe the direction that they're heading, and I'm not so sure about that. But that's just kind of what I'm seeing here, just through my eyes. But again, I thought it was it was by far the best episode of the Acolyte. I think it is opening up what we're going to see going forward, and I'm curious. We got 6, 7, and 8 left, so we got 3 episodes left. I'm going to be very curious to see what direction they're going to take things in, because I have some thoughts, but again, they're just my opinion. But definitely by far the most superior episode of the Acolyte. Be
patient. We're going to get into more plot details coming up very shortly. So we're just giving our initial reactions.
But first, we got a little piece of Star Wars trivia that hit in this episode, Kevin. And actually, because it's something from Legends, and you're a little bit more versed in Legends than I am, I want you to kind of hit up this holocron of trivia, if you would, because it's very interesting.
Yes, I can't remember where in Legends that this comes from, Kyle, but this, when we were watching this for the first time, we were wondering, like, okay, what's up with Kamir's helmet? Why does it seem special and weird? And why does it have why do lightsabers have issue with it? Well, according to this, Knight trivia originally pulled from Legends lore, the cortosis that is used for the stranger's helmet, that's Kamir's character, and gauntlet, is a rare ore that has the ability to disrupt lightsaber blades. Despite its protective qualities, it's not as durable as Beskar. And also, it is he is obviously using it to make sure that Jedi can't get into his mind or read his feelings and stuff like that. So now it's a defensive, yet he's also using it as an offensive weapon too, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I was not as familiar with this. I'm not as versed in Legends as you are, Kevin, or as other people are. But I found this very interesting. The whole idea of it disrupting the lightsaber and what it did, and to take something from that time in Legends. This is one of the cool things that they have been doing, is taking these things. And I still agree with Chris. He's got a Magneto helmet. When he hits the line of, well, I can't read your thoughts, that's why I'm wearing the helmet, I was like, oh, we're going right to X-Men Magneto with his helmet that prevents Professor X from reading his mind. I was like, oh, okay. Also, great point by Chris here too. Sadly, I don't care about any of these characters, so nothing has any weight with me. It's more and more showing it's not for me, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's a great attitude to have.
I was feeling that comment, last few episodes, obviously, because I mentioned about I'm not invested in any of these characters yet. But I have a couple comments about this episode I want to dive into about one of the characters. So yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on and start diving into some of the points of this episode. Again, if you're joining us, you are watching Culture Clash episode 251. We're covering the latest episode of Star Wars: The Acolyte Night. And Kevin, we've got a lot of things to talk about, but let's bring up characters real quick, because there was kind of a bloodletting of characters in this episode as well.
Okay. Want me to do the slideshow, or you got it?
Yeah. Why don't you take the slideshow? Because let's hit up some of these characters here.
All right. So Saul still alive, questionable background. And Dara dead. Still don't know what she's done. Obviously, she's part of something that the group did, kind of like a hangover night that they're all regretting. Jackie, dead.
Okay, not happy about this. I'm just going to put this out there right now. This was a character I was really high on and was really hoping to get some stuff. It is a very cool episode for her and a very shocking moment.
Yes, and yeah, I'll talk about that later. May, of course, we know as much as we do know about her right now, and her character has made a turn in the last couple of episodes. Kalnaka, hardly knew you. Adios, bro. Are we going to get I still think we're going to get a flashback, and we're going to see him do some badass Jedi stuff. But right now he's basically, a Yeti. We barely see him, So yeah. Of course, we know more about Osha and Pip. We're kind of seeing this story through their eyes. I think Pip has more character background than most of the other characters we've seen, to be honest with you.
At this point, yeah.
And did you notice that the little part of Pip was picked up by the little sniffer Jedi? I'm forgetting his name. Someone said
we're not done with Pip yet.
Yeah. Yord, kind of cocky a little bit, by the book type of guy, but he had his moments. Dead. Torben, dead. Got his mind controlled by the witches. Kamir, we'll come back on him here. He's getting interesting, and his introduction was interesting, and how now that we know who he is, Master Vernestra, I'm going to call her the stuck-up kind of mean Jedi, because she's very corporate type of person, and wants to kind of keep things in this circle and not let the rest of the Jedi Council know what's going on. I don't trust her at all.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. There's more going on with her than we know about.
Mother Anasea. We got a background, but we really don't know if she's still alive or she did die or what. When it comes to that, and also Mother Corell. Don't trust her. She seemed kind of sketch, from that episode.
I think we're going to see her again in the modern time of the.
I hope so. Actually, I hope so. I hope she's not dead. So, and then there's a wonderful cast picture of the Star Wars Celebration from last year when they all did the panel there. So, not allowed to say anything at the time. So, yeah.
So that's going to get us into some of our topic points of this week's episode. So. First and foremost, Kevin, lightsabers. We had a lightsaber fight on this episode that they had been talking about for a little bit, saying it was going to top Duel of the Fates. Now, I don't know if I'm willing to go with quite that far, but this was definitely, I think, one of the better lightsaber fights in Star Wars history.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. I need to go back, though, and watch the ones in Ahsoka with Ahsoka and what's his name's character? Shoot, I'm forgetting it right now. The actor that passed away, his character. When he bested Ahsoka and we thought that she was dead. I think there was some good moments there. But yeah, but here, if I had one issue with this, Kyle, what do you think it was?
It was dark.
Yes, as if you've been listening and watching the Fandom Podcast Network, I'm not a fan of a lot of scenes that happen at night with CG and stuff like that, because you can kind of chintz on certain things and get away with certain things. But the other thing too, I noticed, and I had no problem with the lightsaber battle, because I liked how it was kind of paced out, but you can tell they're on a closed set. I feel like the characters at times are just running around in circles because they're in this enclosed environment, which for safety reasons, it allows them to keep it all enclosed and also not have any people peeking in. But I did see some behind the scenes of this episode of the actors training for this, and it was quite impressive with the people behind the stunt work and such. And there was some really cool moves in this. I thought was really neat, combined with the force and kicking, disarming, and stuff like that. And I, this moment here between Jecki and Kamir. Are we calling him Darth Kamir? I know they want to refer to him as a stranger, but I'm not feeling the stranger right now because he doesn't feel like a stranger.
One of the things I really liked about this fight, these fight sequences, was the uses of different types of lightsabers. And using with the lightsabers getting disrupted, you're seeing one of your main villain actually going after to destroy their lightsabers, and I think that's very cool because that's a different strategy. We haven't seen that, and I thought that was very cool. I love the moment when Jecki gets the two lightsabers and kind of does the Ahsoka. You have a little Ahsoka moment with Jecki where when she's fighting the stranger, and it's very cool. I'm going to take a quick minute, Kevin, because I got a friend in the chat, Danielle, who is her son is just getting introduced to Star Wars, and so I got to give him a quick shout out. Malachi, just start your education in Star Wars. So we're going there. And of course too, a quick shout out to our buddy David as well. Welcome into the show. But Kevin, the other thing too with this fight sequence that I want to take a moment to shout out to is because it was such a complicated sequence, because we had so many Jedi in a close quarters set. I got to give a shout out to some of the crew on this, because this was an amazing crew, especially stunt coordinator Mark Ginther, and also fighter ranger Darren Knopp, who really earned star points for this fight sequence in this episode. And
yeah, oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna say this. I think the Stranger might be the most brutal Sith in a lightsaber battle since we saw Darth Vader in Rogue One just destroy everybody at the end of Rogue One. I mean, he was just brutal in this.
Yeah, but he had no resistance that was worth his salt, basically. I mean, now he was brutal, of course, but there was challenges here, and of course we had some, as we use in the term in Star Trek, we had some red shirt Jedi that went out pretty quick. But I did want to mention something that Yord had said to Osha, how this Stranger didn't fight by the rules, basically. Like he had his own way of doing things, and he also said that he gets in your head. And I thought that was really cool, because he kind of like was thinking about that as he said it. And that's one thing that we'll touch on later about the rules that the Jedi have that are a problem for them, basically. And it was the same thing that happened during the Revolutionary War over here in the States. The British were used to standing side, in a long line up against their opponents, and they fire. Where guerrilla tactics is where it happened for the colonial people and stuff. So it's interesting how they have their own rules here, and that the rules are hampering their style for the Jedi, because the Sith here is like, yeah, I don't play by your rules.
Well, that brings up a question I have about this fight, Kevin, and it's something I wanted to ask you, because I understand that there's probably some Padawans in this and some Jedi Masters here, because that's an awful lot of Jedi that went down like a bunch of punks.
Yeah,
in this episode, yeah. I'm like, yeah, again, I come back to something that has been.
Well, I mean, think about it from a martial arts movie type of situation. You got your either back in the old kung fu days, you had the one guy that was so skilled he could take out a lot of people. And these Jedis probably don't have a lot of fighting experience. And this guy either knows Jedi ways, and then he learned from someone that knows how to beat them and learn his own learn tricks of his own.
Well, speaking of that guy, let's talk about that guy, because Kevin, I'm going to ask you, and I might pronounce this wrong, but did Manny Jacinto, who plays Kamir, did he just become the true star of the Acolyte? I liked him even when he was just a sniveling. He was fun. He had more energy than most I've seen from most of the cast in this show, and now just going up to this different level with what we saw of him and the reveal. It was incredible, and he was great in this, because he went from kind of that snivelly little thing to now he's talking some trash. He's putting the Jedi in their place. He's calling them out. I was thoroughly impressed with him in this episode.
It's interesting you say that, Kyle, because if you look at the legends, especially Darth Plagueis himself basically lived in plain sight as someone else, as he worked for the international banking thing, and that's how he got a lot of his power, was able to manipulate things. But he had a different persona outside of being a Sith, and that's what Kamir is doing. Manny Jacinto's character is that he's pretending to be this broker, and this kind of like an information broker type of guy who says that he's working for so and so, actually himself, if you think about it. And it's a great way to be out there and find out what people would really be saying about the people they're supposed to be working for, which is what happened here. And he was smart that when he was confronted by Soul in that town, I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you. Don't do your Jedi mind trick. Blah blah blah. This is all that I do. Of course, he was doing a very good job at lying. And if you think about what Darth Sidious did, Palpatine, he was playing the Jedi against each other and against the Trade Federation, but yet knowing all the information that he had to know to eventually make his move.
Adam O'Brien, of course, Lethal Mullet, who knows his fighting. He's using the Kali techniques with his saber techniques, a Filipino fighting style. And nice. I want to get back real quick to this comment that David made. The Jedi were thinking, who would dare challenge us? So that's why they were taken so easily.
Getting a little cocky.
Yeah, probably been in, had control for so long that it just, they weren't expecting this. But let's talk about Manny himself, because he was awesome in this episode, Kevin.
I'm sorry, he was also in this episode?
Awesome. He was just amazing.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. He was. And if you go and watch that training video, he was doing it. He was getting in there doing it, and he really went above and beyond to do this fight scenes. And I'm sure he had a stunt double for a couple of things, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't much. And his character was very charismatic, almost in a Sith stoic way. And the way that he presented himself was one of my favorite moments. Which I don't know if we want to get into that now, or
let's get into that now, because that was something this felt like the first Sith Lord that I was like, this is a cool Sith Lord. I wanna hang with this guy. This guy's actually like a fun Sith Lord, just in kind of just how he's acting, and it's like he's cooler than the Jedi.
Well, I want to play some recite some dialogue from this. Yes, this scene right here where he has the lightsaber held up against May's head here. And this is, of course, when he is confronting Soul, and I'm gonna call him Sith Khmer for right now. Okay. People say Darth Khmer, whatever, that's fine. But I'm not calling him stranger right now. So he says, "You attack me while my back is turned," as he holds the lightsaber to May's head. "Not very Jedi of you." Soul drops his lightsaber, and Soul says, "What are you?" And Khmer Sith says, "I have no name, but the Jedi like you might call me Sith." Soul says, "Why risk discovery?" Sith says, "Well, I did wear a mask." Soul says, "What do you want?" And then Khmer Sith says, "Freedom. The freedom to wield my power the way I like it, without having to answer to Jedi like you. I want a pupil, an acolyte. But this one," as he pushes the lightsaber hilt hard on May's head, "went back on our deal. She exposed me. So now I have to kill every single last one of you. I don't make the rules. The Jedi do. And the Jedi say I can't exist. They see my face, they all die. Ah, look at you two, right back where you started." Then Yord attacks and recognizes the Sith. I don't know if you noticed that, but he's like, "You."
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Khmer dispenses with him quickly and snaps his neck. Yes. So I'm going to say this. As much as the lightsabers are cool, this was my most favorite moment in this entire series thus far, because we got some backstory here, we got some motive here, and we got a really cool monologue here by a bad guy. And you know what's funny is usually when you get monologues from bad guys in movies, Kyle, what usually happens?
They usually get taken out shortly thereafter.
Yeah. Not in this case, but it was a really cool moment that Manny's character got to do here. Loved it.
So one of the things that, again, and I come back to this, and I think this is something that stood out for me for this episode, and I hope this is something that's going to continue throughout the remaining episodes of The Acolyte with this character. And I'm hoping this character sticks around longer than this show, because whether it's a season 2 or something else, this is a different version of the Sith, because the Sith before, it was about the power and everything like that, and here it's about the power, but it's almost like, I just want freedom to use my power, not how in a way I want to use my power. And you don't necessarily get that from Sith Lords that we've seen in Star Wars live action.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Kyle, because this character, this makes him kind of sympathetic, sort of, because the Jedi, as he says, are making this rule: you can't use the Force this way, you can't use it that way. This way's bad, blah blah blah. And yes, it may be perceived in that, and yes, it probably is. But what I like about this is that compared to other Sith Lords that we've seen, it's always been about power, ruling, power over others, power of two, blah blah blah. But he kind of pokes a little hole in the Jedi logic here, and I like that, and that there's I want to use my powers the way I see fit. Obviously, it's not maybe in the best interest of a lot of innocent people, but it makes him interesting. It puts layers on this character, not just a bad guy trying to kill people for whatever reasons, And I love, that's why I love that scene.
Yeah, and the other thing with that too, when I add on to that, Kevin, is that, and this is something we kind of talked about last week's episode, in the negative aspects of some of the stuff we weren't liking, and I'm still not 100% sure about this, but it is kind of turning the Jedi in a way to, I don't want to say the bad guy, but necessarily maybe the overbearing power, like they've just gotten too full of themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that part is interesting because we know the fall of the Jedi is going to be happening over these next 100 years period between now and the prequel films. But I'm still like, and I guess this is traditionalist in me when it comes to Star Wars. The Jedi are supposed to be the ultimate heroes. They're supposed to be, our good guys. And Kevin, we had to talk about generational Star Wars. And so there's part of me that is still feeling a little bit bugged by this because you want to see your Jedis being heroes. And even in this episode where we have Sol, who seems to be like the Jedi Master, who's like the true ways of the Jedi, but apparently it looks like he has a few skeletons in his closet as well. So
yeah, it's, when it came to the prequels, it introduced us to the arrogance that is the Jedi. And it's referenced in the actual movie. There's a conversation between Yoda, Mace Windu, and I think it was Qui-Gon, maybe? I can't remember. Not Qui-Gon, it was someone else. But anyway.
Obi-Wan? Obi-Wan?
Yeah, maybe it was Obi-Wan, yeah. That's what's happening. And so they're trying to put layers on, like, the good guys don't always wear the white hat. They have flaws as well. And I'm trying to understand and accept that we're not going to get our Jedis in the White Knight type of thing. And I'm trying to be more open to that because a lot of our favorite heroes in movie fandom and TV fandom, Kyle, are your anti-heroes, the flawed heroes, the flawed characters that have issues, and the first one that comes to mind, of course, is Martin Riggs' character in the Lethal Weapon series. We see where he starts and then where he becomes. And it's like, we're used to Obi-Wan in the original trilogy being who he is, and he's not obviously telling the whole story. And we see Luke eventually become the hero and help, turn Darth Vader, and he has this heroic status. And then that changes later on in the sequel trilogy. But yeah, it's just one of those changes as fans that we're going to see more of and see more layers of why why Darth Sidious and his former master were able to take advantage of the situation, take advantage of their cockiness and play them against each other, so to speak.
Yeah. So I think, Kevin, that leads us to the next question. Where do we go from here? Let's be honest. I'm gonna say last week when we had our episode, Kevin, I think both you and I were not exactly happy what we had gotten so far from the Acolyte, and we made it very clear we're not giving a full judgment on the show until we get the whole thing, but we've been disappointed so far in what the Acolyte has given us. This was a very good episode with the fight sequences, the action level picking up. I still have a few storyline plot issues that I'm having some nitpicks with, and we'll get into that here as we talk about this. But we've got a few questions. Where do we go from here with the Acolyte, with the final episodes coming up here? We got 3 left for this season, and if it's only a 1 season thing or if we are going to get more, that's yet to be determined.
Yeah, by the way, I want to just shout out the chat here. Thank you guys. Please, if you're watching and not chiming in, please do. We'd love to hear what you have to say, and we appreciate your participation. Yeah, give us a like too, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. But yeah, so yeah, going into this episode, I was hoping that we'd get some more answers, and we did, which is great. And like I said, that's been my favorite part of this episode. That dialogue that I recited between Saul and Kamir was just absolutely wonderful. And but let's see what happens here. First of all, someone in the chat did earlier, the little Jedi sniffer dude. He obviously knew something was weird. Something was not right, but because he apparently doesn't speak basic and they weren't translating him, he was able to figure out something was wrong and then go and pick up Pip. That's all that I know.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious to see what his situation is, because there's something there. I don't know what it is, but Saul and May, or I should say Saul, who thinks is Osha, but May is pretending to be Osha, they escape together. Now, there's questions there. Also, Saul did feel something familiar about Kamir as well. There's been some speculation that maybe there's a bloodline there. Is this a lost son that he doesn't know? Is it an old Padawan? Is it somebody? Blah, blah, blah. I've heard all types of speculation about that. But with the Soul and May situation, Kyle, where are you feeling where that's going to go? Does he know that that's May? Or is he still a little mentally messed up from what he just experienced?
Okay, so this is, and I'm going to give him a chance to see if they address this next episode. If they don't address this next episode, I might have a problem. But let's not forget, Osha was Soul's Padawan for a good while before he kind of fell out of the. You would think he would be able to sense the difference between May and Soul now, or May and Osha. Now, granted, yes, he's just been through an ordeal. And like I said, I'm willing to see if they address this come next episode. But this was kind of a I'm not so sure about this. And just the way they handled the whole switch, because I'm going to hit this point now. First of all, nobody gets that good of a haircut with a lightsaber. Sorry, that ain't happening.
Well, apparently, but real quick, on Rebel Force Radio, there's this Star Wars themed haircutting place in Australia. And they have Star Wars stuff you can buy. I think I'm forgetting what city that they're in, but maybe they specialize in that haircut down there. I'm just going to say Adelaide was where they were. Adelaide, Australia. So yeah. By the way, thanks to David. By the way, he said the character's name is Basil. Thank you. I keep forgetting that little character's name. You could Yord could understand, but now maybe Basil is the master. Laugh out loud.
But
okay,
here's what I'm worried about, Kevin. And again, one of the things that I've been consistent with the Acolyte, and one of my criticisms of the Acolyte, is it still feels like they're just going through the checkbox of tropes. And what I am kind of worried about here.
Hold on, when you say tropes, obviously the twin switcheroo has already happened earlier in this season. Is there another trope that you're?
Well, just some of the stuff with like the mysteries and some of how the mystery is unfolding and stuff. It was very. As they say, it felt very by the book to me, at least through the first 4 episodes. What I'm kind of worried about here is are they going to pull the old switcheroo where May has been, she's been kind of shunned by this master that she's had. She really wasn't, her whole purpose was because she thought Osha was dead. And now, are they going to pull the switcheroo where maybe Osha, seems like she's been a little disenfranchised because she hasn't been asked back to the Jedi? And if you've noticed that in a couple of times in the prior episodes, is she going to fall to the dark side with Kamir, as Kamir kind of explains where he's coming from to her in the later episodes? And are we going to see maybe kind of coming like, okay, so are they going to pull the full twin swap there? And I'm like, to me, that would be just, in a way, predictable lazy writing with this. But we'll see. This is just speculation on my part right now. And Danielle, I gotta give you. You never know, because I'm sure you can get that nice, close, tight shave with the.
Danielle says, "Do they do buzz cuts at this Star Wars hair place?" So that's a good one. I like that one.
But you get the Padawan braid. You gotta get the Padawan braid.
David did say, I thought it was cool. Soul is upset, confused, angry. This is why he doesn't pick up on the May Osha swap, and that the dark side clouds everything, which was also said in the prequel trilogy as well. I see your concerns there, Kyle, and definitely I'm with you there. I just, I am curious. I'll be honest with you. I am very curious. So especially with the Soul and May pretending to be Osha. I'm very curious to see that play out. If it's going to play out sooner or too late. Like, is it? We have 3 more episodes left. I hope that plays out sooner than in like the last episode, because I think that if Soul realizes it's May, I think there could really be some good confrontation there and some good dialogue. I would really like to see that. Kamir and Osha. Kamir obviously escapes the big bat bug people and realizes that he's got Osha here. At least I'm pretty sure he does. He came hovering down like a vampire on her originally and didn't kill her, and maybe thinks that, her sister betrayed me. Well, I've got her now. New Acolyte. What are you thinking?
No, I think that's very much. He kind of had this interesting look on his face when he realizes he has Osha. There's no question about that. So I think he's like,
what are you thinking then? If he does,
I think he's thinking May washed out. If I can't have May, maybe I can corrupt the sister.
Right. Yeah.
And again, that's kind of my thinking out. And I think he's going to reveal to Osha. Osha's going to find out who his master might be or how he became a Sith. What was it that turned? I have a feeling next episode could very easily be a flashback episode telling Kamir's story.
Well, David thinks the same thing here. David says, I think episode 7 will be another flashback and we'll get some answers. Okay, so I was reminded of one issue that I had, actually 2 issues that I have that I think could have been, if they were combined, if they were fixed together, it would have helped a little bit more. The scene between Osha and May, and how they were like, okay, yay, we're together again, but hey, nope, I still like being dark. I still like being with Jedi, blah, blah, blah. I'm summarizing, of course, and then they get mad at each other and start fighting. These short run episodes are one of the most annoying things in Disney history. I'm really getting tired of this. And I went back and I was looking at the time at some of these episodes, like Andor. We had 50-minute episodes. Even some of the, not every single Mandalorian episode was long, but there was longer episodes. But this episode, if you don't count the credits, Kyle, it felt like it was 20 minutes. And I think there could have been a lot better scene, a lot more dialogue between the 2 sisters, because they finally got together and met up. And then, when they were arguing against each other of who they still support and why, or who they hate and why, it just felt that dialogue there felt really forced, and not enough questions were asked and answered between the 2 of them before they went at each other's throats.
I want to add on to that point, Kevin, because it reminds me of something else that had kind of been sticking in my brain about this, is that for Osha, who's supposed to be the good sister, the light side sister, May seems to be the one a lot more concerned about her sister's life, while Osha seems to have a lot of hate for May and a lot of anger.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And I think that's something that they'll probably maybe feed on a little bit more a bit later. Danielle says, are there differences between the lightsabers of who carries them and why? I know that in this early version of the live action Jedi, we're seeing the yellow lightsabers, and I know some people don't like them. I know that more of the the Jedi guards had lightsabers, yellow lightsabers. I don't know. I think they're kind of cool, but I guess it depends on, for some reason though, Jekki's green lightsabers really kind of pop with her. I think they're really cool.
I think one of the things though is we really started seeing differences in lightsabers with the sequel trilogy because of Kylo Ren and what he did with his kyber crystal and having it kind of a broken crystal like that. And then later in the Acolyte, because we've seen this in the trailer, so I'm not hopefully not spoiling anything for anybody, but we do give spoiler warnings. We're going to see some kind of energy whip lightsaber.
Yeah.
They are starting to explore different types of lightsabers.
So I've got one final point I want to ask you guys and ask the chat here, but I do want to come back on a thing that Danielle said was, who is our favorite character, I'm assuming, of this series thus far. I actually want to address that after this final point. So the final point I want to bring up here is Kamir, is he the apprentice or the master? He's referred to as the master by the Acolyte that we know as May. Or is he an apprentice planning to kill his master with the help of a new Acolyte? And I hope it's the latter. I don't think he's the big bad in this. I think he's probably, because he says something that's interesting. He says, I have no name. Well, as we know in the dark side rule of two Sith, it's usually the master that appoints the name of his apprentice, just as like we famously saw in Revenge of the Sith, you shall now be known as Darth Vader, and so they get anointed that name. And so I think that my personal opinion is I think that he is not the master. He's the master to the Acolyte, and he's just teaching the Acolyte enough to know that I'm the master of you, and you're going to do my bidding. But I think there's another big bad. Kyle, what say you?
Well, I want to throw in a couple of comments here. Adam O'Brien says he's the apprentice, definitely, because the Acolyte is a little rank. The big bad is Trinity. I don't think I'm going to go Indira as the big bad there. David says,
hold on. Let me go back to what he said. Hold that up. He says that the big bad is Trinity. Okay. Now, I know there's kind of a joke in there. Other people have kind of joked about that too. Adam may be serious about this, but if Trinity or Endara is the master, he just had the Acolyte kill the master without weapons because he knew that if it came to lightsabers, Endara would win. So it could be true. We'll find out.
But she used a weapon. Technically, she used a weapon to kill her. She used one of those.
I'm sorry. She couldn't use lightsaber. Like she could use traditional weapons. She was able to do it the other way. But you know what? Yeah. Or maybe that weird Jedi, with the stick up her butt.
David Mandeville. Apparently, apprentice definitely. I personally like Chris's answer here. Not the mama. And Adam chimed back in. No one hires a Carrie-Ann Morris. I think he means Moss, and just had her for 5 minutes. Well, that's.
I'm sorry, the dinosaurs reference really got me, Chris. Well played.
Yeah. I think there's a third way they could play this, Kevin. I think, what if Khmer was some kind of Jedi Padawan or something like that, or somebody who stumbled into the Sith, and maybe he's the guy who's actually truly relaunching the ways of the Sith here. Maybe they disappeared and we find out he stumbled into like maybe a Sith temple or some Sith holocrons or something like that, and he learned that way and gained his powers that.
Well, someone had to train him those lightsaber skills. Well, so and the other thing too. Okay, so they have pulled from Legends here. And during this time, if I go back, and I'm going to mention it again, if I go back to that Darth Plagueis book, which is considered not canon right now, I just wish they would canonize it. During this time, Darth Tenebris, who is a Bith, by the way, he's around. And then he meets up eventually with Darth Plagueis and makes Darth Plagueis his Padawan. And they start working together with the whole banking system and controlling all the financial. It's really cool. They're a smart way of controlling power, which is what we would do nowadays, is buy up land, buy up people that owe us favors. That's kind of the way things are working while they're pretending to be other people in public. So if they're not going to use Legends, they got to find out a way to connect it to Plagueis at least, because frickin' he's canon in the Disney era. So that's where I'm really curious if they're going to go with.
Real quick too, Danielle says, can they fight without lightsabers? I'm thinking these are coming from her son Malachi, who's asking these questions. But it's actually a good point for this show, Kevin.
Well, they did fight without lightsabers a little bit in this episode, Yeah,
but I think there's a really big fight coming in this series that won't involve lightsabers, but involve Force use, because that was such a focus in the early episode about pulling the thread and what the witches were teaching.
Right. David says, supposedly the Sith have kept the rule of two in the background all these centuries, which is why Saul said, why risk discovery? Yep.
So Kevin, I'm gonna ask you real quick. You brought this up. Who are our favorite characters? We talked about this last week. We were talking about our favorite characters, except now a lot of the characters have been taken off the board quite literally after this episode.
Yeah, Danielle brought it up earlier in the chat saying, who are your favorite characters? And I'm assuming, Danielle, that you mean in this series. So I'm going to go with that right now. Well, Jackie was my favorite. I loved, who's the actress that plays her again, Kyle?
Daphne Keane, who played X-23 in the Logan film. And
that's right, yeah.
There are many rumors that she will be returning as X-23 in Deadpool Wolverine.
That would be cool. But yeah, she was great. I loved her as a Padawan. She had a certain swagger too, which I liked, but not swagger in a negative way. And passionate as well. Now that she's gone, but I got to tell you, this Sith Khmer with that monologue, I'm kind of liking him.
Yeah,
I like good villains. My favorite villain of all time is Clarence Boddicker from RoboCop, because he was viciously bad, he was charismatic, and he had some awesome lines.
David Vanderbilt. Now it's Pip.
It's Pip.
Gotta love it. Gotta love Pip.
You know what? Pip's got a little swagger too. I'm just gonna say, I wouldn't mind a Pip. Give me a Pip.
For me, I'm with you. Khmer's kind of really shot up this last episode. I really like this character. I want to find out more about this character. I'm still interested in what's going on with Soul. What is it about Soul we don't know?
Is he hiding some Sith stuff? That's been another theory out there. Is he something out there, or is he just a tortured Jedi that was part of something really, really bad and he's regretting it?
I think it's more of that than the other thing, but we'll find out. But you know what, guys? It's been fun talking the Acolyte. This has again been, Kevin, without a doubt, my favorite episode of this show, and it's not even close. So I'm hoping that,
and to clarify, it's my favorite episode, not because of the lightsaber fighting. It's because of the dialogue that we've heard in this episode. I thought it was great.
So hopefully these final 3 episodes that we have coming are going to kind of up the pattern on this show. So we'll see. But you know what, guys? We got a few other things here that we need to talk about on Culture Clash, including a little piece of news that I think is fairly important with a major franchise. So, ladies and gentlemen,
let's use.
So, Kevin, you know what? There's something we actually haven't talked about very much in a long time here on the Fandom Podcast Network.
What's that?
That would be Marvel Studios.
Marvel's been kind of quiet this year.
Yeah, obviously, and I'll say it now. We're hyping it up. We'll hype it up. July is going to be a Deadpool month here at the Fandom Podcast Network. We're gonna have some fun with a good old Wade, and you're gonna see us bring back our original Deadpool CPT, probably a little CPT of Deadpool too, and of course, we're gonna be talking a lot of Wolverine and Deadpool later in the month as that comes out. But I think this is some big news, Kevin. Marvel Studios is returning to San Diego Comic-Con and returning to Hall H this year. And they got some stuff to talk about.
Do we need to explain what that means, Kyle? For the listeners, the people that don't know?
For those who may not know, San Diego Comic-Con is, for the most part, still considered probably the biggest comic fandom convention in the United States. And it's one of the oldest ones running. And over the years, especially, Kevin, I would say maybe the last 15 years, it really has become the place to debut or to release new things for these tentpole studios and these fandom type films. Marvel has, of course, really been kind of the dominant place of Hall H since the original Iron Man came out. And it's been kind of their domain for the last 15 years or 10 plus years with that. But because of COVID and Marvel having some issues there, we just haven't had a lot of talk about Marvel. Our True Believers podcast kind of just had a recent comeback because we were talking the animated X-Men 97, which was phenomenal. But it's been a rough time for Marvel, but they're coming back with Hall H, and I think they got some stuff for us, Kevin.
Okay, we need to explain Hall H is the largest basically room in Comic-Con where they have the biggest panels. And if you have an event in Hall H, it means that it's popular and you're going to have people lining up overnight. I don't know if they do the overnight thing anymore. Maybe they do the lottery stuff like Dragon Con and some other, and not Dragon Con, but Star Wars Celebration started doing. But it was tradition to wait overnight just to get into that panel for whatever big premiere, and because they get all the A-list celebrities for these events in Hall H, so it's a big deal. And so it looks like not only is Marvel having a Hall H appearance, Kyle, I think they're tying it into a certain movie that's coming out that same weekend.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of Deadpool Wolverine talk, but Marvel has a lot of things up its sleeve that I think they're finally going to start revealing some things. They have at least 3 to 4 movies that are aiming for 2025 release, plus a couple of at least 2 TV series, because you're also talking about Ironheart releasing in 2025, and you're probably looking at Daredevil Born Again before the end of 2025. But I think there's 2 big things that are going to happen at Hall H. I think the cast of Fantastic Four is going to be in attendance at Hall H, and I think we're going to get our first look at something from the Fantastic Four film. They've been filming now for a few months. I can't imagine they don't have a little 2-minute teaser kind of thing they would be able to show.
This is going to be Deadpool's major show, though, dude. Deadpool is going to be highlighted because it's opening that weekend. Comic-Con starts on Wednesday. That Thursday is when they're doing the preview nights for Deadpool Wolverine. Right. And yes, they're probably going to have, I'm sure Marvel's probably going to have more than one panel, but you're going to see the full cast of Deadpool there, dude. And guarantee you, hold on. I guarantee you when they were looking at a release date for this movie, they were looking at Comic-Con and showcasing and making this Marvel Jesus Con.
Okay, but what better way to introduce your new stuff when people have been kind of questioning what you've been doing lately than to be riding high on the momentum of the Deadpool release by releasing, not only having Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman there, they're going to be there. There's no doubt in my mind. But to have the cast of what a lot of people are considering their next biggest film, Fantastic Four, and their next most important film, be there. I also think you're going to, I think you're also going to hear about Thunderbolts. You're going to hear about maybe a new possibly something with Spider-Man, the new Captain America film with Anthony Mackie. And I think there could be 2 other major announcements. I think there's going to be an announcement of what's happening with the next round of Avengers films. And I think we could have might be sitting in their back pocket an announcement of who is taking over the role of Kang.
Kang?
Yeah. I think those could be 2 things that they're going
I don't think they're going to touch on that. I don't think so. Yeah.
I think if they announce something with the Avengers film, I think they might pull something out with Kang, because there's been a lot of rumors about a Coleman Domingo as being cast for Kang, which I think a lot of the fans would really like. But I do think.
Hold on. David says, let's hope Fantastic Four gets it right this time.
Well, a couple news pieces with Fantastic Four. They've already said the Fantastic Four movie that's coming out is not technically it's part of the MCU multiverse. However, and it's going to be a period piece, kind of like in the 1960s, because I think they want to capture that feel of like that first issue of Fantastic Four and that kind of classic sci-fi feel of it. But I think the eventual plan is to incorporate the Fantastic Four via what's ever going to happen with Avengers Secret Wars into the MCU proper.
Are you talking about like shoot him into the MCU proper, kind of like the way they did with Captain America?
Yeah, well,
when they unfroze him.
Well, not quite in that thing, but maybe a little bit of multiverse things could happen. And if they are doing Secret Wars, we'll get into that in a whole other time. I think Marvel is going to have some very major announcements, and we're going to see a lot of new things from Marvel at this. This could be one of their biggest panels in Hall H in the last 7 to 8 years. Let me put it.
Question for the chat right here, and you, Kyle. Do you have your Wolverine Deadpool tickets? The reason why I ask is because I went and bought mine, and I wanted to see it on preview night on that Thursday, and I wanted to see the first showing. It turns out the first showing is going to be 3D at the theater I'm going to, and I'm driving like an hour south to get to a good theater. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of want to see it again on the way back home, so I'm going to also see it on IMAX. I'm going to be seeing it twice, in 3D and on IMAX. Kyle, what do you got going on?
I got premiere night. I'm going up to the theater up in Brandon, Florida. I got my ticket. I'm going to see it on the huge Dolby Atmos screen up there. I cannot wait. I just want to address what David's asking. And so is it another origin story? I'm assuming you're meaning Fantastic Four. I think they're going to treat it kind of like how they handled Spider-Man. They're going to already be powered and established. You might see a quick flashback that shows how it happens, but I don't think it's going to be an origin story. I think they're going to kind of already be established in the time.
Do you think there's gonna be a reference that they made in what was it? What TV show was it? They referenced these 4 astronauts.
Oh, WandaVision. Nope.
WandaVision.
That's not going to tie anything into that. That's,
okay. I was kind of curious about that.
Well, how they're doing it, from what I'm reading, it's not going to tie any of that.
So, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to answer Danielle's question. You know, when they're going to make a new Spider-Man movie, I think it might be something they announced at Hall H. Tom Holland has been hinting at, dropping a lot of hits on social media again lately, and there's a lot of talk of a Spider-Man 4 being.
Yeah, I think it's in production right now. It's going to happen no matter what. So it's definitely happening. But yeah, I think this is going to definitely be the Wolverine Deadpool weekend as well. Like I said, all the things that they're going to be announcing, Kyle, will probably be done in a separate panel, which they should, because we need to see all of the cast of Wolverine come out there. And I did want to mention to you out there that are watching and listening to this, we are going to be doing a Deadpool Wolverine reaction show probably the following Sunday after it releases on that Thursday. So if you don't see it that weekend, wait to watch or listen to our program. But we want to get on this as soon as possible and discuss how cool everything was, or we'll see. So stay tuned.
Well, that's going to kind of wrap up our news section, but we're not quite done yet, because we do reviews around here too, which means we've seen a few things. So once again, it is time to buy it, stream it, or unsee it. That is right. It is time to buy it, stream it, or unsee it. This is our review section of the show. For those of you who might be new or unfamiliar with it, we have a ranking system. Is this a movie that we would buy it when it comes out? Is it like, it was good, but I would watch it if it was available to me to stream it? Or are we going to pull the Michael Moore Pacific Rim Uprising, saying, not only unsee it, but wipe it from existence?
He said unmake it, which I disagree with it, but I thought that was funny.
But it's been a little busy. There's been a lot of TV. June has been a huge TV month, and we're going to address some of those things here later as a few more episodes of some of these shows come out, and we can kind of give a little bit more in-depth review. We've had obviously the Acolyte, which we're covering weekly, but The Boys has been coming out. Orphan Black, Echoes has started. We've got Star Trek Prodigy, which we're going to be covering on our Union Federation podcast, getting ready to start here in a few days. But the movies are starting to roll out a little bit, Kevin, and there's other franchises besides Star Wars and Marvel, and one that keeps going strong is one you just recently saw the latest installment of. So again, spoiler alert, we are going to give a little bit of spoilers of these films. So if you have not seen,
it'll be light spoilers. I won't give away like hardcore plot stuff, but yeah.
And of course, buy it, stream it, and see it. We'd love to work with our friends over at Letterboxd. Kevin, what's the count up to?
Yeah, man. Okay, hold on. So I've been keeping track of all of the movies I've been watching since January 1st, 2024, and in the order that I've been watching them as well. And right now I'm up to 208 films.
I got a lot of catch.
The last one that I watched, by the way, Kyle, which we'll be teasing in Time Warp the next month of 1984, is The Muppets Take Manhattan. There you go.
My least favorite of the Muppet films.
Well, as I was going to say, as I remember, it was one of my least favorites as well, and I hadn't seen it in over 30 years. And I did going into The Muppets Take Manhattan, I had to watch the first Muppet movie, and I had to watch my favorite one, not including, of course, the Christmas Carol one, but I love The Great Muppet Caper for many reasons. I've got the paper towels. But anyway, yeah, so that's the last one I've watched, and I've logged it in the letterbox. But the day before, I did the Cheap Tuesday deal-thon. I think that's a nationwide thing, and it's also in Australia. Movies on Tuesdays are cheaper.
Kevin, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you ride or die with your movie theater?
Our Santa Barbara metropolitan area theaters suck, Kyle. I'm not a fan of them, but I will go to watch a cheap movie on a sequel that, just because I'm curious. Went to go see Bad Boys, Ride or Die, for $6.50 Cheap Tuesday day. Now, Kyle, do you have any memory of the third film?
I do. The third film was actually a lot more entertaining than I thought it was going going to be. I was like, did they really shoot their wad with Bad Boys 2 and 3? Turned out to be. I'm not going to say it was better than Bad Boys 2 because I think Bad Boys 2 is the best of the series so far.
Bad Boys 2 is one of the best action movies of all time.
Bad
even
Boys 3
even Hot Fuzz said so.
Bad Boys 3 I thought was a solid film. And Kevin, I haven't seen it yet, but from what I'm hearing, Ride or Die is clocking in at least another solid addition to the Bad Boys franchise. But what say you?
I would say, yeah, it is. And what I liked about this Bad Boys 4 is we learned from Bad Boys 3, Will Smith's character, Mike Lowry, had a son. And he didn't know this. And his son was brought up basically from a cartel and was trained to be a very violent person and kill people, basically. And his son got captured and put in jail. And what really was kind of cool about this is that he was the one that ended up killing their old boss. Remember him, Joey Pants, Captain Howard?
Yep.
And what's really cool, though, is that a bunch of the characters in this film, they do a good job of adding new layers to the film. Like, I got to give a shout out to Will Smith's character, Mike Lowry. He's always been the kind of badass, the one that always will dive in first, guns blazing. And Martin Lawrence's character is always the one that has the family and he plays things a little careful. Well, Will Smith's character has an issue in this film, and I like that it was addressed, and it's something that is happening. It happens to millions and millions of people. He basically has a panic attack, and you can tell all the years of his, work and violence is kind of catching up to him. And his character has a moment as well, especially with his character gets married. But things start popping up when Joey Pants's character, his past gets tarnished by supposedly dealing with a cartel, and things happen. But we find out that's not the case. And in a message from beyond the grave, these boys try to, first of all, save his reputation in addition to now saving their family. And do you remember the young boy that was, I think it was the boyfriend that they interrogated in Bad Boys 2 in one of the most hilarious scenes? Well, his character goes off to the military, and then he's back on leave. And he has a badass moment in this movie that is one of the funniest scenes in the movie. I don't want to spoil it, but it's worth the price of this film, especially if you're going to go pay $6.50 for it. We have a good bad guy in this, and you can see in the trailers of who that is. That's Eric Dane from was it Grey's Anatomy, and Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four movies that we saw originally. Ian Gruffield, who played Mr. Fantastic. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but he's in it as
Ian,
well.
or I think it's my actually.
Okay. And we get some other familiar faces in this. And I got to say, it was highly entertaining. Some really good action scenes. But I really liked some of the character development and not only them like doing the lone soldier thing, they get help from other people, which really kind of not only highlights them, but also highlights the rest of the cast. And I thought it was a really good sequel. I would say it's a buy it for me. I have the trilogy, and I'll buy this fourth one.
One of the things I liked about this when I was reading about the cast too was that they did bring back a lot of that team that they were kind of running from Bad Boys 3 into this film.
They come back and they worked well together. A shout out to Enzo214. Reggie was the kid, and he said Reggie was great. It's worth seeing the movie just for Reggie, especially the end. And if you see the end, you know what I'm talking about. There is not a end credit scene, but there's a very funny scene at the end with Reggie.
So definitely a buy it for you then, Kevin.
Yeah, definitely see it. It is fun. And I just want to go on a personal note here. And my friend Blair went to go see this in the theater, and he posted a picture. He was the only one in the theater. Guys, you're not going to movies, man. I understand they're expensive. I get it. And it's just easier to stay at home and stuff like that. But I love the theater experience, even though my theater group here in Santa Barbara sucks. I still like going to the theater. I love sitting in a big screen environment And this is going to cause problems for the movies that we're hoping to get to see in the future. They're probably going to cut back on budgets because people aren't going to the theaters. It's a weird time right now. And I know the number one reason, of course, is cost, because theaters are so freaking expensive right now. I know, because I bought those 2 Wolverine and Deadpool tickets. But try to get to the theater, support your theaters.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we're actually going to dive into this topic a little more here on Culture Clash. But one other thing I wanted to talk about with that too, Kevin, to echo on that thing, Hollywood needs to kind of reassess itself too. I read something, and I didn't think about this until it was brought up to me. One episode of The Acolyte has a bigger budget than the entire budget of Godzilla -1.
We got to stop comparing stuff to Godzilla -1 though, Kyle, because that's an anomaly. It was a Japanese production, and maybe they'll learn from that. But if you're going to film anything that's not Japanese, it's going to have a high budget, and costs are just going up all over the States, all over the world. I get it's easy to say it cost only 18 million in Japan, but that's basically an independent film that just blew up and really hit a chord with people. But in Hollywood, with the unions and pre-production and all that kind of stuff, it's a different story. That's comparing apples to oranges.
Well, I was saying more on the effects side, because I know that's where a lot of budget is going. But
yeah, I hope those guys get work here in the States, because they can teach some people some things.
Yeah, that's
and also have special effects during the broad daylight. Yeah.
Exactly. But guys, we have been having a great time, but it is time to wrap things up on this episode of Culture Clash. Again,
thank you, everyone in the chat. We really appreciate it. And if you're listening,
thank you, Danielle, for coming in. I appreciate that. David, Adam, Chris, everybody. Kevin,
if you're listening to this, please leave some comments on the YouTube thread as well. We'd love to read those and mention them out and stuff like that. And subscribe, give us some reviews. We appreciate it. Good reviews, please.
Yes, absolutely. We love the reviews. And you know what? Even if you feel you need to be a little critical, because we're always trying to improve around here too. So, that's a point David has. I think people are waiting for big films, and we aren't seeing those right now.
You shouldn't wait for big films. You got to support the smaller films. You should go see some of those more independent films that people put a lot of hard work into. But that's where we're at right now, and I think COVID really kind of set a precedence. Get back in the theaters, support your theaters.
And thank you, David. You rock too, and all of our listeners.
Oh, thank you, David.
But this is the Fandom Podcast Network, and of course, you can find us on our Facebook page, Fandom Podcast Network. You can find us here on our YouTube channel. You can find all of our podcasts and audio shows on our homepage at fpnet.podbean.com. But you can also find them on pretty much all of the major podcast catchers out there, from iTunes to iHeartRadio to Amazon, all different places. So we are everywhere. You can find us. Of course, too, a reminder, if you're interested in more Acolyte coverage, once again, check out our What a Piece of Junk podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. Those guys do a great job, even when they might be a little hopped up on specialty sodas while they drive the drunken Gungan.
Shout out! I just want to shout out to everyone that was in the chat. Shout out to David, Choices Matter, Danielle, Enzo214, Chris, Ghostbusters Response, Blair dropped in there. Our good friend Adam O'Brien from Lethal Mullet. I want to thank everyone. I know there's a couple other people I'm forgetting here. Thank you guys for dropping the chat. We really appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
And if you want to follow either Kevin or myself on social media, you can find me, of course, on our Facebook group page and any of our group pages on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter at @KyleW. You can also find me on Threads and Instagram at @KyleFandom. I'm also @KyleW on Discord. And if you want to follow me on Letterboxd, it's at KSport16. Kevin, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me in all those places, X, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, all those on social media at Spartan_Phoenix. And of course, here on the Fandom Podcast Network and on Facebook.
Again, thank you to all of our listeners. We're going to be back next week to cover the latest episode of The Acolyte.
I'm really curious to see where it's going to go after this, Kyle, because now that we've got reveals, I want to see how those reveals pay off. I'm actually more anticipating this next episode than I have been the last few.
Yeah, I will completely agree with you there. Hopefully they can kind of keep the upswing going, and we'll see where it goes. And like I said, this is why we have said all along, this is why we're not giving a final judgment on the show until the whole story is told. That's just how it rolls around here. But for everybody out there, again, thank you for listening. 4th of July is next week. Have a great and safe holiday for 4th of July. And of course, most importantly, as always, respect each other and enjoy your fandom.
See you guys.
We've done this thing, and we are out of here.